What's going on, guys? John, aka Homescope here, back with a brand new video, and today we have 25 tips for graphic designers on Twitch. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Before we get into the video, I actually want to mention that I'm a graphic designer myself, and I've been designing for about the past 10 years, and that includes my schooling. I have a bachelor's degree in graphic communications, a minor in marketing, and a minor in advertising. And I've spent the past 2 years working in the marketing department of a local travel agency that is very successful. Unfortunately, I had to be furloughed due to the COVID-19 situation, but on the side, I've been doing freelance for Twitch streamers. If you guys have any questions regarding this topic or about design in general, feel free to stop in my Twitch stream. Links in the description below. It's going to be twitch.tv/homescope. So how this is going to work, I have 25 tips written out on my new iPhone 11 here, and I'm going to rifle through each one of these tips. Please feel free at any point to pause the video or rewind if you might have missed something. Tip number 1, know your worth as a graphic designer. A lot of graphic designers actually tend to get undervalued in the gaming sphere because work can come off cheap or unprofessional. Really take the time to objectively look at your work, and if you are providing the value that you will in turn be receiving, then you're looking good. If not, it's really time to reevaluate. Tip number 2, leverage your experience. If you're a graphic designer outside of Twitch or outside of gaming, there may be times that you run into someone looking at your portfolio and thinking that it's too professional or kind of too corporate of a look, and it doesn't fit the gaming space. So one way to combat that is to really emphasize the fact that you have been a graphic designer for this many years, this many months, whatever you have, any credentials you have, really use that to leverage yourself in order to gain more clients, especially in the gaming space. Tip number 3, create content. If you're a graphic designer and you're not already making content on YouTube and other social media platforms, I highly recommend it. You gotta jump right into it. Because what this does, this actually shows people the process of you creating your designs and adds the personal part to your personal branding, so people are gonna trust you more. And even on top of all that, it opens up the opportunity for networking and creating other jobs that you might not have necessarily had before because people are finding your content elsewhere. Tip number 4, show your process. Now, we kind of mentioned that in the last one, but when you're creating content or you're showcasing your work to a client and you really take the time to show the process, it shows the steps it took to reach that end goal of whatever design it may be. And they recognize that and they see that you put in a lot of time for this, and in turn, it's really emphasizing the value that you're providing. Tip number 5, do some cheap or free work if you're brand new. This one's kind of self-explanatory, but if you're brand new to graphic design, ask some of your friends if they need some design work done, and if they do, then you can create a portfolio based on that work, which can in turn create new projects for you. Number 6 is kind of a classic. It's the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. It's simple, but it works. Basically, any design that you see that's really complicated and really hard to read, that's an unsuccessful design. What you want to do is keep it as simple as possible while also being unique enough that it's its own standalone design. So keep it simple, stupid. Tip number 7, learn a little animation. This is actually going to go really far for you, especially when you're going into the gaming space, because the bar is kind of being raised for these overlays. A lot of people have these flat graphics, but they want these motion graphics involved with their designs, but a lot of graphic designers aren't actually able to do that. So when you learn a little bit and you can implement it into your designs, you're setting the bar higher for yourself, and you're also separating yourself from the pack. Tip number 8, gather inspiration from other designers. Now, there's a fine line here, but make sure that you're following other designers on Behance, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media platforms. That way you can gather some inspiration and see what's trending and what's not. This does bring us into number 9, which is don't steal designs ever. If you do, we will find you and we will kill you. But seriously, if you steal designs, it's just that you can't consider yourself a designer, and you will be completely canceled by the community, and it will just be a bad look for you as a whole. Don't come up with the excuse too where it's, oh, I changed one little thing, so it's my design now. No, it's not. Tip number 10, try different colorways. A lot of designers kind of stick with the same colorways that they've been doing for projects for however many months, years, whatever it is, whatever they're comfortable with. So trying out different colorways kind of helps you extend out of your comfort zone and might actually end up working better for a design that you would have just simply stuck with the colorway you've been doing this whole time. In a way, it's making you better. Tip number 11, leave your comfort zone. We just kind of mentioned that one for the colorways, but this goes for any kind of design that you're doing in general. You might be stuck with a specific type of style, which might be your style, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but don't be afraid to try out different things, because it's overall just going to make you a better designer and just push you to be the best version of yourself. Tip number 12, consistency is key. I know we just kind of mentioned that you should go out of your comfort zone to change different things, but make sure that you're not changing it so much that you lose your consistency. It's okay to implement these new ideas and new elements, but make sure that you're staying consistent and that your design all flows together. Tip number 13 is one that I am not very good at right now, but I'm working on it, and I have been good at it in the past, and that is managing your time. When you create an allotted amount of time for you to work on a project, it gives you enough space to breathe so you can come up with brand new ideas that you wouldn't necessarily have been able to come up with if you procrastinated on the project. Tip number 14, develop your style over time. This is not a marathon. It's going to take a while to develop your own style. Don't focus so much on it in the beginning. Just create something that you can use as a personal mark just to start off with. And over time, as you become better, as you do more projects, you will be able to develop your own personal style. Tip number 15, utilize free assets. So make sure you're using websites like DaFont, Unsplash, where you can get free fonts or free photos. And what this does is it increases the quality of your work without you having to spend so much time and effort that you can actually use that time and effort towards your actual project. Tip number 16, use elements from previous projects to save time. Now, when you're working on one project and you might have elements in it from a previous project, so let's say that there's 2 Photoshop files, right? And you need the layer styles from the one project you did beforehand and put it into the new one. It's gonna save you so much more time rather than trying to create brand new layer styles in that new project. And it's gonna help you use that time towards something that's more worthwhile. Tip number 17, show your work and let your clients come to you. This is kind of similar to the create content one, but when you're putting your stuff out there and you're showcasing it, don't spend the time trying to beg people for design work. Let your work speak for itself, and when they need it, they'll come to you. Tip number 18, sketch out your ideas first. This is gonna help you save so much time, and it's really gonna help increase the quality of your work so much. It's a necessary step that a lot of people skip, but when you do it, it helps weed out the bad ideas and keep in the good ones, and really be able to visually see it in a much quicker way than just working on the computer. Tip number 19, don't follow the same path as others. If you have an idea that hasn't been done yet, do it. You may see graphic designers that don't necessarily have the personality aspect. They just showcase their work and their content is just straight up design. You might have something going on in your head. You might have an idea to really add in that personality aspect that someone hasn't done yet. Don't be afraid to do it because you feel that no one else has done it yet, that maybe it's something that was targeted once and is never there again. It might actually be a niche that hasn't been targeted yet, and you're really creating something brand new that can ultimately help you find success. Tip number 20, don't overwork yourself. Burnout's a real thing. Make sure you find balance. One thing my grandmother always taught me is that life is made up of peaks and valleys. You're at the peak, eventually there's going to be a valley. And when you're in that valley, eventually you're going to find a peak. Make sure that you are finding a balance in life and spending enough time with the people that you care about and not just so enveloped in your work to the point where it just takes over your life. I promise you will be so much more content if you find the nice balance. Tip number 21, learn to say no. You got to understand that some projects aren't necessarily made for you. For example, I'm not a web designer. I never will be a web designer. Coding just really isn't my thing. If someone comes up to me and says that they need graphic design work as well as an update to their website, I simply let them know, I'm sorry, unfortunately, I'm unable to do that type of work. What you can do is you can actually refer them to another designer that is more inept to those type of capabilities. That way you're not necessarily burning the bridges with that client. Tip number 22, pay attention to trends and big moves in gaming. For example, we have this whole Mixer debacle that just happened where Mixer is completely shutting down, and a lot of these streamers and content creators are going to be moving to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook gaming. And a lot of them don't necessarily have assets that they could use to let their audiences know that they're moving. So there have been some designers in the community that have already come up with this idea, and they've created these assets where these Mixer streamers can let their audiences know which platform they're moving to, which is a phenomenal idea. Now the second part of that is pay attention to games like Valorant just came out, for example, right? And Valorant is a very specific design style that people love and that people are continuing to use in their designs. Basically, anytime a new game comes out or any big news happens, make sure you're paying attention to it because it might actually affect the way that you design your next project. Tip number 23, shoot your shot. Now you might have a favorite content creator that has a huge following and there's no way they could hear you through the noise, right? You'll never know if you can actually be able to do design work for them. It may be your dream to be able to create work for them as far as graphic design goes for your favorite content creator, but you'll never know if you'll be able to do it if you don't shoot your shot. So just do it. Tip number 24, collaborate with other designers. They may have some abilities that you don't necessarily have, so when you create this brand new project with them, there may be some things that you wouldn't be able to do before, and it creates this beautiful, beautiful work. And on top of that, as far as networking goes, their community intertwines with your community, and vice versa. So it works out on both ends. All right, and for our last tip of the video, tip number 25, be patient. Sounds simple, right? Well, if you look at the graphic designers in the community, right, a lot of them who are very successful and are actually able to make a career out of this, it took them a very long time to get where they're at now. And it may come across as frustrating when you're not able to reach the certain levels that you see other people at. You might not be able to get the same amount of work that other people are, or the same quality of work. it wasn't built in a day. A lot of these people, they've been doing this for years, and it's going to take you probably around the same time. Just be patient and do not lose your passion. That's what's keeping you coming back. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. It was very different to come up with 25 tips like this. It's not what I do typically for my content, but nevertheless, it still involved graphic design and gaming, so I'm not upset about it. Please leave a like down below if you did enjoy the video, and subscribe if you want to see more content similar to this that involves graphic design and gaming. And that's it for me. So love, peace, and chicken grease.